Likutei Torah, Parshas Pinchas, page Ayin Vav, first column, midway through the first column. Okay, last thing the Rebbe is explaining, how does it come to reveal the level of Seviv Kol Almin, Imam Ala Kol Almin? So he says that's the level of Korbanos. And he explained that Daimim Sameach Chaim Medaber corresponds with the four elements of Eish, Mayim, Ruach, Chafar. He says Offer is Daimim, Mayim is Sameach, Eish is Chai, and therefore Korbanos are Ishai, Isheh, the fire of the Jew, the fire of Hashem, and that is what happens through the Nimshach Hayidei Lachmi, and that's why Korbanos are called the bread of Hashem. And he explains that just like the bread keeps the Neshama in the body, so it keeps Hashem in the world, there's a level of Korbanos. This we're up to now. So he says, Vine, midway through the first paragraph, first column of Ayin Vav. Chochma comes in the level of Ayin, B'chinas Ayin, which is Rotz and Elyon, the will of Hashem, Raiv and Choraiv, and the will of all wills. Rotz and Elyon Zeh, and this will of Chochma is Nimshach L'mata B'chinas Asiyah. Like it says, Kulam B'chochma Asisa, that the highest level of Chochma comes into the lowest level of Asiyah. And he says, that's the concept of Sha'amarti v'naseh ritzeini. Nasa doesn't only mean they're doing the will, they're actually bringing down this will of Hashem, which is the level of ayin that Chochmah comes from. Like it's known, Hashem himself, the Shaykh Beirotin Klau. In the essence of Hashem, there's no concept of a will. A will means, not will as in when you die a will. Where there's a will, there's a relative. The will over here means what Hashem wants. Now by definition, wanting means there's something else that I want. It's not me. If it's me, then I don't want it. It is there. It's there. So when you say the expression, it doesn't apply to the essence of Hashem. There's no will. Will means you're drawn to, you want something, that means that I'm shachat to something else. Unlike Tainug is an essential inyan. It says, Kikula kamer klei mamish chshiva, everything compared to Hashem is nothing. Ve'en arech loch. If you do something, it doesn't matter. If you don't do something, it also doesn't matter. In other words, there's no rotzen that has to be or could be. What it means is, this is what Hashem wants. This is what Hashem needs, because that's what He wants to need, so to speak. By the awakening of the Yitzaveda Torah mitzvahs, becomes a serusa delayla, the awakening from above, laham shechrotzen elyon baruch lamata, to bring down the will of Hashem. That means Hashem wants to need that when a Jew does Torah mitzvahs, he reveals the rotzen elyon from above. Now Hashem can do that without us. He is that without us. He doesn't need us. Whether we do it or not doesn't mean anything. But Hashem is Shamarti. Marti is a Torah. And therefore they kiyamam Torah nasa b'chinas rotzen lo de b'tachteinim, that in a way it should be begilui. So he says, what does it mean? A korban is lachmi shamarti reich nechech. I mean, the good smell. The Gemara says, what does it mean? Shamarti v'nasa ritzeini. I said, meaning, Torah, how does Hashem speak? Through Torah. Hashem reveals through Torah the level of Anasir Tzoni, and this becomes that the Yidden revealed the Ratzon Elyon Baruch Hu. Because what Hashem wanted was a Dira B'Tachteinim. Dira means where you reveal your essence, not where your essence is. Your essence is wherever you go. But where do you reveal, where do you behave the way you really are, is when you're in home.
So how is it that when you do Torah mitzvot, you're connected to the essence of Hashem?
That's exactly what he's saying.
No, he's saying that it's what's on.
You connect, that means it's our accomplishments for ourselves. The essence of Hashem is all over. Okay. What makes me connected? Connected means it's an open connection. What makes me openly connected to what the essence? What makes me openly connected to Hashem? Okay, let's speak in simple language. Every Jew is connected to Hashem. You're a Jew, you're a Chelek Mimal. Right? You're part of Hashem. Every Jew is connected to Hashem. What does Torah mitzvahs do? I'm connected anyway. What do I need it for?
Greater revelation. You connect more.
No, not more. What do you mean more? How do you connect more? The essence is connected. Connected means you're openly connected. You feel it. The essence of Hashem is here all over, whether we like it or not, whether we do it or not, whether whatever. The essence of Hashem is all over. The concept dira b'tachteinim, dira means I reveal myself the way I am. In the street, my essence is there. But I can't reveal my essence because this person's looking and I have to fake this person, I have to lie to this person, I have to do this to that person. It's all connected to somebody else.
It's not that I reveal, I want to reveal, and because he wants to reveal.
No, Hashem says, no, what I want is that you should reveal and openly connect yourself to me.
And
that's Torah mitzvahs.
If it's want, it's not the essence. It's want.
Yeah. So Hashem's essence is revealed that He wants us to connect His essence. Yeah, that's exactly it. He wants us to connect His essence. And He says, which is halav amshacha. What does Hashem want? It should be the avoid of the Jew and then the revelation of Hashem. That's the tiknun based tefillas. There's two tefillas, chayva, shachris, and mincha. Shachris is mimata l'mayla until Baruch Shama is asiyah. From Baruch Shama is psukkah de zimra birkas akol b'chinas halam mimata l'mayla. Is a gilui mimata l'mayla. I'll explain in a second. Mincha is the word of menucha. That's the gilam shach m'mayla l'mata. In other words, like this, there's two mandatory tefillas during the day. I mean, it's machlekes, but the Pearl, even though Tzemach Tzedek says whoever says tefillah is midrabanan, never saw Eidus Miyamav, but the two tefillahs are chayva, shachris and mincha. He says that's the sulam mutzav arza, v'reisha megia shemayim. So shachris is going up the ladder until Baruch Shama is asiyah, Baruch Shama to yishtavar is yitzira. Birchas Krishma is Bria, Atzilus is Shmonesra is Atzilus. So that's Milmaila Lamata. I'm sorry, Milmata Lamaila. That's the Neshama going up. Mincha, on the other hand, that's the second Aveda, that's the Gilui Milmaila Lamata. Because Mincha comes from the word Menucha. Menucha is not Aveda of the Jew, but rather the Gilui Milmaila Lamata. And that's why Mincha is much shorter than Shachris. Because Mincha is just the Shmonesra, Gilui Milmaila. And he says, Mincha Mlash Menucha, Shebemincha Ein Shamrak Tfilas Yitches. Because what's Mincha? Asher is just, so to speak, introduction. If you don't say Asher, you'll say it's a davening. Masha Enkim B'Shachris Tiknu Baruch Shama, Psukkah de Zimmer Birchas Krishma, because it's Mamata L'mayla. V'tfilas Yitches, the Shmonesrei, is Amshach of L'mayla L'mata. Chai Pa'amim Baruch Ata. Okay, when you say Baruch Ata, Baruch is to bring down. That's the L'mayla L'mata. Shakol Baruch is Amshach at the level of Akedis Yitzchak, Shenichla Yitzchak Bavra. Okay, so he says like this. And Ma'ariv B'chlal is Rishus, is option, Ma'ariv is optional. But Chassidus explained, first of all, practical halacha today, it's mandatory anyway. But there's no repetition of the Shemona Esrei. Just simple halacha. Why don't we repeat why isn't there Chazor Shas by Ma'ariv? Because Ma'ariv halacha is only optional. If it's optional, so they missed, why do you repeat the Shemona Esrei? For people that didn't know how to daven, they'll listen to the Chazan and answer Amen, and there will be Yaitza davening. But if you don't have to daven Ma'ariv, why do you have to repeat the Shemona Esrei? Except Friday night, there's a mini repetition. But like this, there's no repetition. Okay? But Chassidus explains that the level of Ma'ariv Rishus, Chassidus turns everything around. It's so high, you can't even demand it. It's a higher level. Even the Teshuva says in Shabbos that, first of all, everybody accepted Ma'ariv as a chayva anyway today. And he says, secondly, Yaakov Avinu made it. How could it not be,
Rabbi, that's going from up to down?
Ma'ariv is both together.
I always thought tefillah is always Mamata L'mayla.
No, part of tefillah Mamata L'mata. That's Musa Eilam v'Yardim. There's the Eilam of the Yid, and then you have to bring that down Mamata L'mata. That's why after Shemona Esrei, Tachlon is the culmination of Shemona Esrei. Then you have Asher V'Otziim D'Yem Ein Kalakeinu Noleinu. That's bringing it back down.
You say tefillah. Torah is that?
Generally speaking, tefillah is mamata l'mayla and Torah is mamata l'mayla. But in each one you have both. In Torah you also have both things. The person has to be gisa b'yem v'layla. It has to be the person's aveda. So both are. Even Shemona, he's saying yes, Shemona itself is mamata l'mata. It's both things together. This unity of Eish L'mayla, Be'eish L'mata, this to unite the fire of the Yid, Isha, and Ishai, which is the Gilur L'mayla, Eish Yud, is as Karbani, as Karbani, what is it? As Karbani Lachmi L'Ishai. It doesn't have to say the word S. Shh. It could say Karbani Lachmi L'Ishai. S is usually an extra word. Like it says, Kabed Es Avicha V'Esimecha. It could say Kabed Avicha V'Esimecha. It says Es Hashem L'Kecha Tira. It says, so Rabbi Shmuel Taka all learned every S in Chumash that it includes something. Until he came to Es Hashem L'Kecha Tira, you should fear Hashem. Could have said Hashem L'Kecha Tira. So Rabbi Shmuel said, okay, I'm done. That's it. Just so you get reward, he says, Kashem shemekab muschar al adrisha kach mekab muschar the prisha of not explaining it. So Rabbi Kiva came and said, no, es Hashem l'kachatil, Rabbis Tamir Chacham. You have to respect the scholars also. But anyways, he says, what do you mean? Es karbani lachmi. So he says, es is aleph to taf. Like the Alter Rebbe says in Shayach V'Amuna, Bi'ata mechaya es kulam. What do you mean by ata mechaya es kulam? So ata is aleph to taf, and the hey is the 5 formations of the mouth. The lips, the tongue, the teeth. So he says, Bi'ata mechaya es kulam. The Alter Rebbe explains Shayach V'Amuna that the letters of Torah, creation, and the hey mitzvah, that's what mechaya es kulam. So he said, what does it mean? Es karbani lachmi, he says, Es are the letters of Aleph to Aleph Ataf, which is a level of karbani, klemer krevim elai, umekarvan eisi. He says, Es karban comes to the word karev. Right? The Gemara says, why is it called karban? Because it brings a person karev l'Hashem. It brings a person closer to Hashem, and it brings Hashem closer to the Jew, because it goes both ways. So he says, S, the letters of Aleph to Tov, which is Karbani, meaning the letters bring you to me and me to you. And he explains, what does that mean? It says, the words that I put in your mouth, which it says, the Torah is the words of Hashem. And the Gemara says, a Mishnah is Malkusa, a Mishnah is Malchus, meaning She'eise kemelech. If he does it, he becomes like a king. That commands us to do this mitzvah. So then what happens when you do it? You become connected. That's the definition of mitzvah. You become connected. And the Gemara says that whoever learns Torah, when you're learning Torah, Hashem is opposite you, and he's saying the same thing that you're learning. Right? Becomes bittul v'yichud dibur b'dibur. Your dibur becomes bought on Hashem's dibur. U'machshava b'machshava. Okay? But he says that has to be through the level of bittul. That's why before learning Torah, you have to have Yosef be'emso, upasa b'shmaita, you have to have the level of yira, bittul. The Gemara says, "Mat lahalim." Just say by matan Torah, be'emo bereses b'zeh was complete awe and fear and bittul. The people vayaram vayonu vayamdu merocha was total bittul. It's the same thing. Every time a person learns, he has to have that level of bittul. So he says, when the asik of Torah through Torah becomes bittul, the yuchad dibur b'dib mashava de mashava, and this level of bittul is bechinus madregas Moshe Rabbeinu olav shalom. Because Moshe Rabbeinu said, "V'nachnu ma." Moshe Rabbeinu's chachma v'atzilus, which is the level of kayach ma bittul. That's why Moshe Rabbeinu said, "V'nachnu ma bittul," ultimate bittul. That's why he says, "Tzav b'nei Yisrael v'amarta aleihim." At the beginning of the Maimed, Alter Rebbe asked the question, why does it say amarta twice? Tzav b'nei Yisrael v'amarta aleihim, and then it says v'amarta aleihim. What was the question at the beginning of the Maimed? Okay? So he says, why does it say dafka by korbanos? Okay, so he's going into this whole thing. And he said, that's why it says, Tzav b'nei Yisrael v'amarta aleihim, aydei sha'atam, Tia tzav b'tzav sechadem b'nei Yisrael. Tzav is b'nei Yisrael, so you that you become bound. The Ganata to tzav, the Rebbe says, tzav is b'nei Yisrael. Moshe Rabbeinu not only connects to b'nei Yisrael to Hashem, but the tzav he binds the Yidden to themselves, right? All the Yidden. Hainai de shayum shochem mechinas Moshe. Through the level of bittul and Torah, yelem kerech hadibur. They will get the Kerech HaDibur. V'amartalem is carbony, then it will be his kasha, so bittul dibur b'dibur. So that's why it says, through the level of Tzav b'nei Yisrael v'amarta aleihem, by you commanding meaning, through you revealing the level of bittul, the level of Moshe Rabbeinu and every single Jew, then you get this level of amartalem, then you connect to the essence of Hashem. Yes, Neisen HaTorah.
For Bitul of Torah that we learned that day, and also the Tefillah?
No, it's only Berachas HaTorah, it's not for Tefillah.
Here it says that you should have you have to be bought to when you daven.
Learning Torah. No, you don't have to mean that davening.
You have to be bought to when you're davening?
Yeah, davening is bittul. I mean, it's supposed to be.
So that the Torah that we say in the morning doesn't cover the...
It goes on everything. Primarily, it goes on, really, if you take it simply, it goes on Torah.
So the Torah went from davening to Torah learning? Is that what happened?
Yeah, it's both interconnected. One Momata Lamaila, one's Momaila Lamata. Tefillah, he says, has both levels to it, because now he's talking about Korbanis, which is the level of Tefillah. So Tefillah is the level, Momata Lamaila, Momaila Lamata, but in the level of Bittul. And then he says, this comes through the Asius of Torah, Aleph to Tov, as Korbani Lachmi.
So we accept that this Torah is Hashem's Torah, and it also covers the...
It's not that it's Hashem's Torah. Hashem's Torah doesn't mean it's bittul. Hashem's Torah means, therefore, I don't understand anything. Okay. But there's different levels of not understanding. I said many times the story of Bekiva Eger, close with the Mittel Rebbe, is a very in yeshivas, when the big thing was to answer Tzorchi and Gadol, when Rabbi Akiva Eiger remained answerless on the question that he asked, there was a big thing in yeshivas to try to answer it. Okay? He writes a lot of times Tzorchi and Gadol. Yeah, there's comment on Gemara, Shuvas, whatever. So he had a question learning that really bothered him. You know, when he learned, he had a lot of questions, push it in depth. So one time he comes into a shul, there's a Gemara shir, yeah? And the Rav is teaching the Gemara shir, a bunch of balabatim, and they're learning and they shake their head, they understand it, they finish the class, they close the Gemaras, they had a good class, you know, they went home. And he starts crying. I think somebody said to him, why are you crying? He says, you know where he was? He said, you know, it bothers me. These simple people understand the Gemara, and I don't begin to understand it. You understand? But his not understanding was a much deeper level of their understanding, obviously.
That happens to me anytime my children fix my phone.
Yeah, but the difference is here we're talking about Torah and they're talking about the... That's what one of the Simanim Mashiach Na'arim Pneis Keinim Yalbinu, the kids will embarrass the elders. Where do you see it openly today? In anything that does with the computer or phones or any technology? Yes, they embarrass us. Okay, so he says, okay, skip the parentheses, top of the second column. V'nei Torah yesh also beis bechinas. Just like tefillah has two levels, Mamata l'mayla, mamayla l'mata, right? So he said, like Shachris and Mincha, Shachris, Mamata l'mayla, and then Mincha's mamayla l'mata, even though in each one you have both. He said, but Torah yesh beis bechinas, there's Torah shebiksav and Torah shebal peh. There's also Torah shebiksav and Torah shebal peh. Torah shebiksav, which is Tanakh, is called Mikra. We have Mikra and Mishnah, right? Torah shebiksav is called Mikra. Why is it called Mikra? Simply because you read it, right? But he says no. Mikra keire b'Torah maloshin kriya. It's calling somebody to come. Ka'adam ha'keire l'chaveira b'shmei. Like you call your friend by his name, and he's supposed to. He comes to you. So what happened? That's mamayla lamata. You're just calling his name and he comes. The Medrash says that Shmeitz of Shalom Kadosh Baruch Hu. The whole Torah is the names of Hashem. That the combinations of all the letters of Tanakh. The Shemitz HaKadoshim. But Torah Shabal Peh Nemer Tes Tishmeru. Shmer is the Mishnah. Shamar L'Nukva B'chinas Mekabel. Right? Shamar is the level of female, because it's Leisasa, the level of Mekabel. Okay, so he says the Kachin Torah Shabal Peh is the level of Mekabel Shabal. Because what is Torah Shabal Peh? Torah Shabal Peh receives from Torah Shabiksav. What is Torah Shabal Peh? Everything in Torah Shabal Peh is alluded to in Chumash. Right?
Expansion.
No, the Gemara says, where do you learn it out from? Or everything is... So Torah Shabiksav is Momayla Lamata. And then Torah Shabal Peh is Momata Lamayla. Taking this level. Torah Shabal Peh Mekabel Vayidei Nishma B'Leva Adam. To be guarded in the heart of the person, to be Ishai Eish Yud. V'lo yeh ma'abed mashanesim. And you shouldn't lose the mashanesim. The Gemara says, the Gemara has many definitions of what a shaita is. But one of the definitions of the shaita is shema'abed mashanesim. Simply means a crazy person is you give him something he can't, he loses it. He's not mature enough to watch it. But Chassidus explains, what does it mean, a shaita, ruach shtus? You know, the shaita that sins, the foolish spirit. It says, what is the level of a shaita? Shema'abed, he loses the the level of bittul shenesimle. The neshama is given the level of bittul. So what is a shaita? You lose the level of bittul, because when you don't have bittul, you sin. Everything goes to, even you're learning Torah, goes to Shos Kibbutz Atmeis. It all goes, there's no bittul, there's no, it loses everything. Shema'a b'mapir shma is a level of bittul, like it says, v'nachnu ma. V'shem ma neisim l'chol adam milmayla. Every person is given this level of ma milmayla, because the neshama is given a revelation of Elokus. V'tzarech shlei l'ma'abed l'chas v'shom d'ma. By guarding it, that's the level of Mishnah. Okay, skip the parentheses. What is Torah Sheba'al Peh? Torah Sheba'al Peh is understanding. Torah Sheba'al Peh, you have to understand. That means it's your avoid of understanding. Torah Sheba'al halachically, you don't need to understand Torah Sheba'al. If somebody reads Tehillim and doesn't know one word of what they're talking about, still gets a mitzvah of learning Torah. Torah Sheba'al Peh, if you take a Gemara with vowels and you just read it and you know what in the world you're talking about, you don't get a mitzvah of learning Torah. Because Torah Sheba'al, the primary thing is the letters. Torah Sheba'al Peh, you have to understand. You have to understand what you're learning. That's your hasaga. There's hasagas rotzen leid aloch va mitzvah bur to understand it. That's why, by the way, the Gemara explains. You give somebody an aliyah. Okay, they make birchas hatayra, birchas Hashem avera, Asher baruch habanu, Asher nasal lanu, but they don't know what you're talking. What the guy's reading. How are they making birchas hatayra for learning Torah if you don't know what you know what the guy is reading? You haven't the faintest idea. And it could be you can't even read the words. Definitely if it's in a Sefer Torah without vowels. I mean, So how do you make a Birchas HaTorah? So the answer is because in Torah Sheba'al you don't have to understand what they're saying. That's ideally you have to read along with the Balkeira, but if not, you're still listening to him, so you hate it. So you can make a Birchas HaTorah, it's not Bracha HaTorah. Mash'en kein Torah Sheba'al, ein ba Gili HaRatzin. There's no Gili HaRatzin. Because there's no understanding in Torah Sheba'al. And he gives a mashal. When it says by tefillin, ukshartem la'is hayadecha. Okay, in Shema we say, tie it for a sign on your hand, which means tefillin, obviously. Who, what, when, where. You read that pasuk, you can read it 1,000,000 times, you won't know anything about tefillin. You have no understanding what tefillin is. Because Torah Sheba'al, you don't have to know what it is. Until Chazal come and explain that it means Dalet Batim Shebetfillin, they have to be tafram, they have to be sewed, Valachzun and the diagonal of the tefillin, the Dalet Parshi is Chen Sukkah, she's Geveya Chofam, there's a Sitna Sukkah. Oh, what, when, where, what's a Sukkah? That's the measurements. What is it? Hainu Fishakol, Bechinas Torah Sheba'al Peh, is to be the Keli Klei Kibul. Mug v'la'agvos ratzina el yemer tzal baruch. Keitza tia should all say the way the Eibush has to reveal himself. Ube'eza eifin, and how we cause Hashem. In other words, like this, Torah Sheba'al Peh tells you how to do the mitzvah. That means if you don't do the mitzvah right, you build your own sukkah, not kosher, you're not bringing down any Elokus. Not only you're not bringing down Elokus, you make a bracha of Atoli, even doing a sin. So you need Torah Sheba'al Peh to explain how everything has to happen. Torah Sheba'al doesn't explain anything.
What's the day?
When you